Ted Cruz and Donald Trump each capturing 2 wins in yesterday's round of voting. Trump still the frontrunner in the hunt for delegates. But after last night, you can see Cruz is nipping at his heels with 300 delegates to Trump's 382. Marco Rubio trails behind with 128. John Kasich has 35. The battleground states of Florida and Ohio still lie ahead, of course, where Rubio and Kasich are placing high hopes on their home states. First, though, the Michigan primary is this upcoming Tuesday, and my next guest is hoping to pick up momentum there, which his campaign says will position him to arrive in Cleveland for the Republican convention and exit as the nominee. So let's talk about that with Ohio Governor and presidential candidate right now, John Kasich. Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
Is that the plan?
Well, the plan is to work every single day and, telling people about what I want to do to relieve a lot of their economic anxieties, make sure they feel they can get a job and get some decent wages and their kids can graduate from college and get a decent job and not have to live with them, in their basement. And so we have ideas about that. We're getting good crowds everywhere we're going, and it's enthusiastic. Excuse me. And it's not only enthusiastic, but committed people. We're going to Michigan, where we are closing, and we think we're going to do well in Michigan. And then we come to the geographical, political center of the world in Ohio, where I will win. And then it's a whole new ball game. And I think that it's going to be difficult for anybody to get enough delegates to just claim the nomination. And I think it's going to be an interesting time in Cleveland. So
you are expecting a contested convention going into the Republican convention, which, of course, is the week of July 18th. Donald Trump is looking at the numbers, and he's saying, look, the field has to narrow. I want to go one-on-one against Ted Cruz. And he's basically suggesting you and Marco Rubio should step aside. Give us your plan of attack in terms of how you actually do go into that convention with a brokered convention and come out the nominee.
Well, we're just going to be competing all across the country, Maria. Look, the calendar is such that it wasn't my home court advantage. Now that we're heading up north, we're getting more. It's March Madness. You want to have home court advantage. And we look at Ohio, we look at Pennsylvania, we look at Connecticut, New Jersey. These are places where I can do extremely well, including in the West. So it's a long way to Cleveland. There's a lot of time to go. And we're going to do the best we can to get as many delegates as we can. And, and let people know that, I've been, some people say, the adult on the stage, the one with actually answers and not name-calling. And so we're just going to keep plugging, and we'll hopefully get to Cleveland in a good, strong position and leave it up to the convention.
Yeah, I guess the question is, is that enough? I mean, let's say you do well in Michigan, you do well, obviously you take Ohio. Is that enough? Let me put that aside for a moment, Governor, because I want to ask you about policy, and I want to ask you about what's important to the voters. You go to a state like Michigan, and you're seeing jobs, the #1 issue. You're seeing people worried about foreign workers coming in, taking their job, about technology replacing them. What do you bring to the table? What do you offer those voters?
Well, look, actually, Michigan has had a pretty decent rebound, a very good rebound in terms of jobs. Here in the state, we're up over 400,000 jobs, with wages growing faster than the national average. And I look at technology in many ways as not an enemy, but actually an ability, like a Tier 1 auto plant in Michigan, where they've really brought a lot of technology, where workers have higher productivity, higher wages, and more secure jobs. So I think we need to embrace these things that can boost productivity so workers can do better. At the same time, I think it's important in the country that we lower the tax on big businesses, and with the combination of skilled workforce, lower energy costs, access to the North American market, I think we can have significant gains in manufacturing. But people are worried because, here's the thing. Am I going to lose my job? I haven't had a wage increase. I have my money in a bank, Maria, right? I'm supposed to get interest. I'm sure your mother tells you this. She says, Maria, tell me, I have my money in the bank. I get no interest on that money. These are things that are really frustrating people, and they need to be responded to. And it all gets down to a a better regulatory climate, lower taxes, and a path to a balanced budget.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, now we know that there are 5 countries that have negative interest rates, meaning the banks are basically needing to pay the central bank to even hold that money. So they're actually losing money with where rates are right now. You know, you look at Hillary Clinton this weekend coming out with her, what she's calling a jobs plan. You look at your plan and your other colleagues on the GOP looking at tax reform as one of the critical parts to creating jobs. Is that what it's about? Is it largely about tax reform and rolling back regulation? Because Hillary Clinton is looking to raise taxes. I think she wants to raise $1.1 trillion.
Yeah.
And she's talking about putting more rules and regulations on the docket as it relates to certainly mergers and keeping money abroad.
Well, Maria, listen, the formula that I used, the formula that I used in Washington was one of balancing a budget and cutting the capital gains tax and simplifying the rules. And we had a balanced budget. We paid down a lot of debt. We cut, you know, we were in a position where workers were doing very well. Jobs were creating. The same thing I've done in Ohio, lowering taxes, common sense regulations, surpluses actually in the state of Ohio. We know that's the formula that works. That's what we did in Washington, and Bill Clinton tries to take credit for a very strong economy. We actually pushed them to the balanced budget. So we know what works. If you want to regulate more, tax more, and be out of control financially, you're not going to have job creation. I mean, you know that. The formula works. And in Michigan, the governor there has done exactly what I've just said, trying common sense positions on regulations, not no regulations, but common sense positions, and lower taxes and a fiscal policy. These are the things that can really work.
Yeah. You know, there's the battle with the Dems. There's the battle with Hillary Clinton in terms of economic policy. And then there's the battle within your own party, Governor. What's your take on Mitt Romney coming out, calling Trump a fraud, this sort of ripping apart that has happened within the Republican Party?
Well, Maria, here's the thing. You know, Donald Trump is tapping into the anxiety that these voters have. I mean, there are seniors who are worried they're not going to get their Social Security. They believe the government stole their money. Back to this interest of, or the issue of, you know, I educated my son and daughter, but they can't get a job, or I might lose mine. I don't think that you beat Donald Trump by getting into a name-calling contest. I think the way you beat him is to have a vision and to have a record of accomplishment so these people can hear you and say, well, wait a minute. You know, Kasich's on to something here. Maybe he's done this before. Maybe he has the solution to these problems. Because if you don't recognize the problems, then, you know, people think you don't get it. And you know what? I actually grew up in an environment of economic insecurity as a boy. So I completely get it. It's just that I've got some specific answers and have a record that shows that I can solve these things, working with others, of course.
Do you agree with Donald Trump's take on China and on Mexico in terms of these trade deals where America loses and he wants to change things with tariffs?
Well, no, I don't, because 1 out of every 5 American workers are involved in trade. There are 38 million Americans whose jobs depend on trade. My agreement with him is on this. Whenever somebody violates these trade agreements, we shouldn't look the other way, Maria. I mean, if we turn this over to some international bureaucrat to try to resolve, by the time they find in our favor, people have lost their jobs. I mean, you know about the dumping that has occurred in the steel industry, right, where, you know, the South Koreans, you know, dump all this steel in here below the cost of making it. They disrupt our economy. They take our people's jobs. That's an outrage. So it is important that we enforce the rules and not sit around waiting for somebody to debate this stuff until kingdom come, and our workers are out of a job. That's wrong. I agree with him on that.
Governor, you make a lot of great points. We'll be watching the next couple of weeks. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
All right, Maria. Thank you.
Good to see you. Governor John Kasich there.
Thank you, Maria.